Mozart had some positions, but they were like part-time positions, and he was trying to make it as an independent musician, and didn't quite have the political good fortune to be able to have this situation work out to be, a full-time position. So he was putting together concerts. This was the beginning of public concerts, and where people would buy tickets to hear a concert. And so there were concerts that were called subscription concerts, in which the aristocracy and the upper class would be sent these invitations to attend this concert that would feature music of Mozart, and it would feature a new concerto, a new symphony, scenes from his latest opera. And so the genres that Mozart really excelled in, and he excelled in everything that he wrote, but the two that are pointed out as being the most innovative and had the greatest impact on the era were his operas and his concertos. So Mozart was especially talented at being able to write music that captured human personality. And so his operatic characters have a three-dimensional quality because of that. So instead of them being like representations of mythology, gods and goddesses like you have in opera seria from the Baroque period, Mozart's opera was much more believable. And so he had this ability to create what would be inspired dialogue among characters. So he's really famous for his ensemble final scenes of acts of his opera. And also, he transferred that genius to the concerto, and having this sense of inspired dialogue or conversation among the different elements of the symphony and with the soloist. So we'll see in the Mozart concerto that he treats the woodwinds as a separate unit that also has its own unique role in conversation with the entire orchestra and with the soloist. So the emperor gave Mozart a part-time position. He made the comment, it's too much money for what I do, but not enough for what I could do. So he died suddenly and basically was broke when he died. His body was taken, he was buried in a pauper's grave, which basically, if you didn't have money for a proper funeral, then your body was taken to the outskirts of the town and dumped into this mass grave. And so that was how that ended, and there's all kinds of speculation about exactly what happened. There are all kinds of rumors and things about poisonings and so forth. But at any rate, that's basically what you'll read about Mozart. So be sure that you read about his life in the textbook, and that you can talk about aspects of his style. So with Mozart, he was something like a musical sponge. Everything that he heard, he took in, and his style was basically Italian and gallant in nature. So there are some general musical characteristics of Italians and Germans. So, for the most part, his orientation was Italian. So it was in Italy that opera was born. The Italians are very much vocal in orientation. In comparison, the Germans are more instrumental. So instrumental music is by nature more abstract because it doesn't have a text. So obviously, if a composer is setting a text, you have some idea as far as the meaning of the music because of the text. In general, the Italians feature homophonic textures, so that there's a greater sense of clarity in homophonic textures because it's easy to identify the melody. The Germans, on the other hand, are known for their polyphonic orientation to musical texture. The Italians view music as entertainment. That the purpose of music is to entertain, to delight and please the listener. The Germans tended to view music more as a learned display, something that had a deeper, more complex element. So all of these elements are associated with that pre-classical style that emerged in the 1720s and 1730s in Europe. And you see it especially in Italy, in France, is known as the Rococo. You see it in England, and to a lesser extent in Germany. But Mozart's style is very much based on that Gallant style. As his style evolved, though, it takes on more and more German elements. So you start to find more polyphonic development sections and a little greater complexity as far as the construction of the music. And so that's what we're going to see in this example that we listened to from his Symphony number 38, which is called the Prague Symphony. It has that nickname, and I'll tell you about that in a second. So one important musicologist that you should know about is Ludwig Herschel. And Herschel cataloged all of Mozart's works. This catalog is chronological. There are over 600 works in total. So the higher the number, the later that it was written. So Mozart's works are known by their K numbers, as well as just the order of, which symphony or which concerto. All right, so the symphony then emerged in the first half of the 18th century, and composers like Stamitz were writing four-movement works which had the basic features that are going to be the standard for Haydn and Mozart, and then later Beethoven and Schubert. So Mozart wrote 41 symphonies. And only 2 of those are in minor keys. So he wrote 27 piano concertos, only 2 are in minor keys. He wrote 5 violin concertos, they're all in major keys. So basically, he was writing works that were in the major mode. And it just reflects the sensibility of that era. So we're going to look at Symphony number 38 in D major, nicknamed the Prague Symphony. So this work was written in 1787, and it was written as a present for the city of Prague. Mozart's opera, The Marriage of Figaro, had premiered in Prague and had a really successful run. And Mozart was really popular there, so they invited him to be an official guest of the city on a visit in 1787. So he composed a symphony and presented it to them on this trip that he took to Prague. There are a couple things that are a little unusual about the symphony. One is that it only has 3 movements, so it doesn't have a minuet and trio movement. A second thing that's kind of unusual is the fact that he doesn't use clarinets. So the woodwinds are just flute, oboe, and bassoon. So 2 flutes, 2 oboes, 2 bassoons. But it's considered one of his greatest masterpieces. And we're going to look at the first and second movements. And then we'll also listen to the third movement as well. But another thing that's unusual is that all 3 movements are in sonata allegro form. So I'm going to hand out some copies of the score. I'm going to collect these. I'll pick these back up after we listen to it. And if you'll share so that 2 people turn the back page will be come off. So one statement that you can make is that Mozart's use of melodic chromaticism is something that influenced Haydn. So melodic chromaticism is something that's always viewed as being expressive. And so we're going to hear a lot of melodic chromaticism in this first movement, and that's something that's a Mozart feature. So conversely, Haydn influenced Mozart with the use of motivic thematic development. And we've already talked about that term motivic, but just to review, that has to do with a short thematic unit that's extracted from a longer theme. And this is one of the great examples of Mozart's skill as a master of counterpoint in polyphonic writing. And so what we're going to see is that Mozart will extract 3 motives from his A theme. And then he's going to develop those in the development section in a polyphonic texture. So that's probably the most important thing about this first movement that I want you to remember that we're going to look at. So you should refer to the theme sheet for Symphony. And you'll see that down the page that I have the themes for the Mozart Prague Symphony on the web page. And you'll see that these 3 motives are bracketed. And this is what Mozart is going to work with. So the first motive that he's going to work with is at the very beginning of the exposition. And so if you turn to the second page of the score, then you can see this, the way that the A theme is presented. So this A theme starts out with a syncopated repeated note. So it starts out with this. Motive it's going to work with. And so it has this repeated note. The second thing that it's going to work with then follows that, and it's in the woodwinds. It starts with that. It starts with an octave lead. Okay. So that's the second motive. Okay, so the first motive has a repeated note, the second motive has the octave lead and a descending scale. If you turn over to the next page, then the third motive is shorter. It's only 2 beats long. And so it's just this idea that he sequences. So that's motive 3. Okay? So those 3 ideas you're going to listen for in the development section. And it's amazing the way that he combines all these together so that they're all sounding at the same time. All right, so let's